with Merfolk. And so Jonathon Zaczek, I know is Pikachu on your right, with Nathan on your left playing Temur Delver, as this is a win-and-in situation.
Yeah, you love to see it. I mean, this is the definition of people getting rewarded for playing decks that they've been playing their entire life. And Pikachu is a Merfolk main in multiple different formats. Mostly, a lot of people probably know him for his prowess in Modern, but definitely is able to sling some Force of Wills and Wastelands alongside those fish.
Yeah, he when he plays Modern, he's got to play his Force of Negations. He gets a little bit of an upgrade now, can kind of handle whatever he wants. And I think it makes sense that Merfolk is like pretty well-ish positioned. Overall, just a fast clock plus some disruption has been proven historically to be pretty good in Legacy, and this deck just kind of consistently does that.
Yeah, and on the other side of your screen, we have Nathan on Temur Delver. I mean, this is as classic as it gets. This is, when I think of Legacy, Mason, I think of Temur Delver. This is basically the first deck that has ever existed. This is probably the oldest deck that people still play, and a lot of the cards in this deck were the same cards that people played way back then. Delver of Secrets, Force of Will, Daze, Lightning Bolt, and we'll have to see how this matchup plays out. I'm not entirely sure. There is a plethora of removal here. We have some like I said, bolts, heats, and then a fast clock backed up by Delver. So seems like there's a lot of play draw here, and have to see. Pikachu does have some important cards like Cavern of Souls, which can help blank the Force of Wills and Dazes out of the Temur Delver side. So that seems like a pretty important one.
Yeah, when I talk about historically, fast clock plus disruption is good, I'm talking about Temur Delver. That is what we were discussing. So, in a lot of ways, I think both these players have, picked pretty good decks. And one of the cool innovations in Temur Delver recently is, Orcish Bowmaster came in and really knocked the doors down and came to Legacy, sort of redefined sort of what you can and can't be doing in a lot of ways. And, getting Questing Druid becoming a staple of these decks as a way to draw cards and also be a threat has been really cool to see, as we do see Nathan lead off here on Volcanic Island into a
what
Ponder.
Is that?
It's Ponder.
Okay. Well, it doesn't. I don't register.
It has a turtle on it. Turtles ponder things.
I mean, I do like the turtle aspect of it, but anyways, yeah. Ponder for Nathan. We'll have to see if there's, Pikachu, I guess, would probably rather see a Ponder than something like a Delver of Secrets, especially if that can flip pretty quickly. Because, when there's a little bit less pressure, you have more time to develop and get those lords into play. And it looks like we're starting off with a Rishadan Dockhand. This is the fixed Rishadan port.
Mm-hmm. Modern Horizons 2 All-Star.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. From what I remember, this is probably, I'm dating myself when I say this, but I feel like the Merfolk decks used to play Rishadan Port similar to the Goblin decks, and now we have Rishadan Port on a stick.
Yep, we're going to see a Wasteland taking down that Cavern of Souls into a Ponder here from Nathan.
Looks like Wasteland on Cavern of Souls is massive here for Nathan, especially if there's, a Force of Will or a Daze or anything like that, and really wants to make sure he can keep that Cavern off the table for as long as possible, because, if that Cavern sticks in play, Pikachu gets to just resolve every single creature, and at some point it's just going to get to like a snowball type of thing as Pikachu taking a peek at that beautiful Wasteland.
Yep. And speaking of beautiful, if you're a Nathan fan, Pikachu was just showing us his hand. No lands in there. We got a lot of 2-mana Merfolk in hand and a Force of Will. So we are really hoping that this top of our deck is an old basic island.
At Force of Will Wasteland.
That's true. Bam.
just throw it in the red zone. Get in there. Rishadan Dockhand. Rishadan Dockhand's not bad, but when you don't have mana, it still can at least attack. And Pikachu's going to do that. Does not deploy a second land here. Do we have a threat? We have a Channeler here from Nathan. That's going to get the party started.
Mm-hmm. We're going to see a fetch the Polluted Delta. Grabs another Volcanic Island.
Yeah, I want to take a look at Nathan's deck. I know that I think I've seen some of the Delver decks play one Surveilland. There are no copies of Surveillands in Nathan's deck list, so it kind of makes sense. You just want to be able to curve out and don't really ever want to have the downside of ever drawing a tap land, as we see Pikachu pick up a second Force of Will. That's not a land.
Offering the trade with the Dockhand. Nathan decides, you know what? I'm not about it, as we untap. And it looks like we did flip the Delver with a Brainstorm. And we are one card type away from Delirium here.
That's not the secret layer like the really
No,
fancy Brainstorm, is it?
no, that's not the 100K Brainstorm.
Okay.
Yeah, it does kind of look like it. That is the like game day promo one or whatever.
I
Like
see.
the game day ones have weirdly had legacy and vintage cards recently. I don't know if you saw, but like Vengevine and Hollowed One are like the
I did
current
see
game day
that.
promos.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, vintage players, get them out there. Sack for 1 here from Nikachu. Did draw a beautiful island.
That's how they get the vintage players to play standard.
Yeah. So we are going to see a Tide Caller.
Yeah, Tide Shaper hitting the battlefield. We'll see if Nathan even cares about that. Looks like we do. That's going to be a Daze. Get a little surveil action here, potentially. Trying to fuel that Dragon's Rage Channeler. From my point of view, I think I see just land sorcery, 2 ponders, 2 lands. That Daze will be a 3rd type.
We do have a Surveil. And but a Questing Druid in the yard.
That's the 4th type. So 2 3-power flyers with Jonathon at 16. That is going to be a 3-turn clock. So we went Float Mana, Daze, and then cast Questing Druid. Nikachu is going to go ahead and Force of Will that. It's going to put Nikachu down to 15. So 15 facing 6, it's still, roughly the same math. But, with Nikachu not really having any sort of creature interaction or any ways to block flyers, like looking at the deck list, there's just not much here. There's 2 Merfolk Trickster, which I guess can tap 1 for a turn, but everything else is just stuff on the ground and none of it flies. And there's 2 Dismembers too, but that one's going to cost you a lot of life after you've already taken a couple of hits.
Yeah, this might just be a situation where we're going through the motions here. We see another attack with the Dockhand. Bam.
That Dockhand's doing work.
15 turns to go, Nathan. Best start counting. So we see
Dockhand.
a second Dockhand. Double the clock. Wrap it up.
Love it.
Nathan
Now the game's over.
Yep. We have the Trickster in hand. If we had hit the land, we could have tapped down one of these flyers. Looks like Nathan just making sure he's like, well, got a bit of a win-in situation here.
Looks like we have a bolt here for Nathan. Nikachu is going to pack them up. Really unfortunate start here for Nikachu as we see him fall to Temur Delver. That 1 land hand meeting the Wasteland from Nathan, that was a tough way to go about it.
Yep. Let's take a look over here at Nikachu's sideboard. We have 2 Merfolk Trickster, 2 Force Negation, 2 Dismember, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Chalice of the Void, 2 Null Rod, 1 Blue Elemental Blast, 1 Wasteland, and 1 Hydroblast. Devin, what do you like and why?
A lot of 2-ofs. As far as Nikachu's side of things, so you could maybe go towards something like Merfolk Trickster to maybe buy a turn from one of the flyers. Force of Negation is a little bit awkward because a lot of times if you're fighting over Dazes and Force of Wills, then you can't use that to fight over their counter spells on your turn if you're fighting over a creature. Dismember, pretty good to take care of the early creatures. Chalice of the Void, that one seems like a slam dunk here for Nikachu because has some 1 mana cards like Aether Vial, but the 1 mana creatures can play through Cavern, which plays through Chalice. So I like those. And then potentially the Blue Blast, Hydroblast to take care of Channeler and Bolt, although those are a little bit more narrow.
All right. Meanwhile, over for Nathan, we have 2 Pyro and 2 Hydroblast, 2 Force Negation, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Torpor Orb, 1 Red Elemental Blast, 1 Blue Elemental Blast, 1 Surgical, 1 Meltdown, 1 Counterbalance. Devin, what do you like over here for the Temur Delver side and why?
Well, considering that Nikachu's deck is mono blue, I think I like the card Pyroblast because it says destroy a blue permanent. So, my expert analysis says that one's pretty good. Past that, not a ton. There's also the red blast. So there's 3 blasts total. I guess 3 of each, 2 pyro, 1 reb. But yeah, after that, maybe not a lot else. Potentially the Counterbalance, although that one doesn't play through Cavern, so it's a little bit awkward. Torpor Orb against Tishana's Tidebinder and Merfolk Trickster, but that one's pretty narrow, so probably not that one.
That makes sense to me. If you were to be playing one of these events, we are going all around this year. We have some upcoming events. I believe our first one's in Indianapolis after this weekend. Let's see if I was right. I was, Devin. Let's go.
Every time.
May 11th and 12th. We have a modern 10K showdown. You come, you win one of those, you're going to go to our end of the year championship event. It's going to be super awesome. Over $20,000 on the line and a Pro Tour invite. You can play against people like Dominic Harvey if you win one of those. And then Sunday, Devin, we're giving away 3 more spots with a team showdown. Standard, Modern, Pioneer. You and 2 of your friends can qualify for that event, play together for those high-stake actions. And I believe that's all the events we've announced so far. Let's figure out. I was wrong. St. Louis is coming up June 22nd through the 23rd. That is going to be a 10K Pioneer Showdown on Saturday. That means you're one of those. Once again, you're in. And then Sunday, we're having a 5K Modern Trial. And Devin, of note, this is a week after the release of Modern Horizons 3. That modern event is going to be so exciting. I cannot wait to cover that event coming up here in just a couple weeks at St. Louis.
Oh yeah, and the 10K Pioneer Showdown is that one's going to be after, I think it's 3 weeks after the RC, so the metagame maybe looks a little bit different after the oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of RSQ season. The RC is standard. Never mind, forget what I just said. Anyways, yeah, that event's going to be awesome. I'm very very excited to see what MH3 has to offer.
It's going to be very cool. Hopefully you like it, Devin.
I can't make any promises. All right.
I can think of a card I think you like, so we'll see.
All right, Nikachu is going to be on the play here. Let's see if we can maybe find more than one land this game, or potentially just not get wastelanded forehead. That's that's the goal there.
Yep.
But like I said, I imagine play draw has to matter quite a bit in this matchup if Nikachu is able to kind of get under the Delver player, because the Merfolk deck can sort of go pound for pound when it comes to like actual threats that can race, especially when you kind of put those lords into the mix, where if Nikachu has one or two mediocre creatures in the battlefield and suddenly maybe vials in a lord, plays a lord off a cavern, all of a sudden 2 power turns into 6, and you're dead in 2 turns as opposed to dead in 10 turns. Looks like Nikachu is going to take a mulligan, and Nathan looking at a 7, maybe thinking about it. Looks like Nathan is good to go on that 7.
Yeah, this matchup is really weird, right? Like both players don't really block each other. There's a lot of flying and a lot of island walk and a lot of islands going around. So this one is a spot where I agree beyond the place matter 10, especially if Nikachu can get down something like that Aether Vial.
Yeah, almost like the kind of the classic, like what we used to see with goblins, where they went Aether Vial and then Vial in a 1-drop while porting. You can kind of mimic that a little bit with the Vial plus Dockhand stuff, where you just Vial, they'll play a Dockhand, Vial in some stuff, Dockhand to tap lands. Now, the interesting thing about Dockhand is there is a pretty hefty amount of instant speed interaction, the bolts and the unholy heats, and then afterboard the pyros and the reb. So there's a good chance that Nathan can just float some mana and then have a removal spell or use his mana in some other fashion, maybe for like a brainstorm or something.
And it looks like Nathan was actually taking a long think there and decided to mulligan with Jonathon. So both these players going down to 6 cards here.
Yep. Yeah, and Aether Vial is an extremely powerful card, but every single time you take a mulligan, that card can lose a little bit of luster, where, you want to have a whole bunch of stuff in hand to be able to Vial in, and, the mulligans get a little bit more damaging when you have an Aether Vial in your opening hand, even though it is still probably one of the most powerful cards, if not the most powerful card in Nikachu's deck.
Yep. Yeah, he's almost weirdly wanting to have less lands, right? Like if he's going to have a Vial start, he's kind of like, well, I kind of hope I have like a land, maybe a Wasteland, to help knock off Nathan's mana a bit, and then the Vial to sort of make up the fact that I have down cards. So this looks like we have a double island start with a couple lords here. I'm no Merfolk master, but that looks about as good as it's going to get on a 6. Who knows, though? Nikachu might have some specific plans he likes in this matchup. So this looks like he's eyeballing one of them. Nathan very quickly put a card down. He's like, I don't think I want this one ever.
Yeah, I think Nikachu's hand was 3 lords, 2 islands, a trickster, and then a card that I cannot quite discern what the last one is. And it looks like Nikachu considering putting back one of the maybe a Force of Will, actually. Yeah, so it looks like the last card's Force. So yeah, lords, 2-drop, couple lands, Force of Will, can't complain about that. And it looks like Nikachu considering putting back one of those lords, that Hexcatcher. And the other one was I think that was the trickster that went back instead of the Hexcatcher.
Yeah, I think it was trickster. I actually think he has the Tide Shaper and just 3 lords. I think Nikachu's just planning to attack for a bunch.
Tide Shaper, also known as Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Plan B. Flooded Strand here for Nathan. Definitely does not really care about killing that 1-mana 1/1. Would rather just save the removal for the Lords. So likely going to deploy either a Channeler, a Delver, or perhaps a Cantrip here.
Yeah. We will have to see.
It's good to see Temur Delver. I feel like I feel like at least from the legacy that I've watched over the past year or so, it's been a lot of Grixis, a lot of blue black, and Temur in the boomer inside of me is very very happy to see Temur Delver.
Yeah, it is nice to sort of see it persevere. One of the things I really like about these older formats is, they've been getting a lot of shaked up recently, like some really strong cards from like Universe Beyond sets, like Fallout's Pip-Boy. But players do iterate and learn and figure out how to overcome stuff, right? Like it seemed like you had to be Grixis because of Bowmaster, and now they figured out ways to sort of get there. As Vodalian Hexcatcher is going to come in with the flash, bam, push an extra point of damage,
bang.
And
and the funny thing about no copies of Orcish Bowmaster in Nathan's deck is Nagachu doesn't have to worry about that stuff. Vodalian Hexcatcher, powerful lord, but unlike Lord of Atlantis and Master of the Pearl Trident, is a 1/1. So it does get swallowed up by Bowmasters, but fortunately, that's not something that Nagachu has to worry about here.
We are going to see a lightning bolt on the Hexcatcher. You're just going to sacrifice a counter unless you
pay the one.
Nathan thinks about it, decides, I shall not.
I will elect to not pay the 1. Thought about it for a second.
Speaking of 1, Nathan attacking in for 1 and a pass of the turn to Nikachu. I think we have a red elemental blast in there in hand for Nathan.
Yeah, and I think Odawara 3 lords left over? Yeah, I think it's 3 lords. So we're going to start the train. Lord number 1, get in there for 2.
Okay. Does Nikachu have beta Lords of Atlantis?
No, those are time shifted.
Those time shifted? Oh, okay. I thought those were betas for a second. I was like, dang. It makes sense. I mean, he loves the Merfolk because we're going to see a bolt on that Lord of Atlantis surveilling a DRC to the graveyard.
Does that count as not passing the Triumph check?
That's tough. I feel like it's so hard to know the difference from the booth.
Okay.
But I'll let the chat decide. As we are going to see a Wasteland for turn, fetching up. We're going to use this Wasteland maybe for the secret pay for a Daze mode. Instead of mana denial, it's Daze denial now, as Volcanic Island is the pick.
Second Volcanic, so not favoring a green source here, so perhaps doesn't have something like a Questing Druid in hand. That's actually, now looking at the deck list, that is Nathan's only green card is Questing Druid. So this is essentially just a blue-red with some Questing Druids. No Tarmogoyfs, no we used to see Nimble Mongoose, but that one's probably been power crept for quite a while this sometime.
Yeah. Yeah, you knew it wasn't good enough when it was an MH1, right? They were like, it's fine. It's fine for Modern. I'm so surprised Pick Your Poison hasn't seen play. That was one I kind of expected. As we are going to see a Brainstorm here get cast, as Nathan figured out. But Pick Your Poison is one I kind of thought I might see some of today, but it looks like players are not really needing that right now, which is fair. Maybe it just doesn't line up with what's going on.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful sideboard cards and sometimes even main deck cards in Modern and Pioneer, and it's just, phenomenal cards. So like you said, yeah, a little surprised to not see it, more copies in a lot of these decks. But, it is, maybe it doesn't line up the best against something like Beanstalk where, they get their card out of the Beanstalk. So even if you pick the poison, you're still down a card in the exchange and it can be a little bit awkward sometimes.
Yeah. I like this from Nathan. He was thinking about, do I want to just blow up this Odawara, and decides rather hold it for something like a Cavern of Souls. We are going to see Merfolk of the Pearl Trident come down.
Yeah, shake of the head for Nathan. And, this is all Nikachu's deck. I think there's a second Odawara in hand. So considering just maybe Lotus pedaling the first one and, going into casting a second Lord, but that lines up a little bit awkwardly against Daze. So potentially don't want to run into that as, you want to play around Daze as much as you have the ability to.
We are going to see a red elemental blast on the Master of the Pearl Trident, knocking it down. We're going to bend that Ponder, draw. Maybe Nathan will go for the Odawara now as we've drawn the other one. Oh, he wants it so bad.
He's thinking about it.
Yeah. Kind of a big tell Nathan doesn't have Daze in his hand, right? Like if he had Daze, he would just, go for the Odawara and put you on 2 mana.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think Nagachu picked up an Ether Vial. That one, not the best on turn 5 or 6.
Blast you. As Nathan takes it down once again. And this is sort of the common experience that I feel like I have when I play against Merfolk, where I just killed their lords one after another, and they never stop playing them. And sometimes that's good enough for them, and sometimes it's not. So we're going to see an Aether Vial stick the battlefield.
Yeah, as powerful as the Merfolk deck has the ability to be, it doesn't really have any kind of inherent card advantage. Like there's no Brainstorms, no Ponders, no ways to gather additional cards. Even in the Goblins deck, you see something like Goblin Ringleader and things of that nature. And the Merfolk deck is, at the end of the day, just all stats, right? It's just all power in the battlefield. Now, that being said, Nikachu does have 4 copies of True-Name Nemesis in his deck. And with Nathan at 7 life, if Nikachu can find one of those as a Murktide hits the battlefield, so maybe not anymore, but that True-Name potentially had the ability to race.
Yeah, I mean, this Merfolk is a 2/2, and it doesn't have Island Walk, but if we draw like an Island Walk Lord into Island Walk Lord, as we do have a Lord of Atlantis.
Okay, step 1. I think, yeah, Force Blue card is the leftovers here for Nathan, so that's going to be tough.
That is tough. Trying to get a Surveil going on.
Yeah, and with that 7/7 Murktide in play, I believe the Channeler is still Delirious. It's hard to tell a little bit from here, but I'm going to guess it is, and with Nikachu falling to 2, I don't really think there's any outs at this point.
Yeah, I think we were outless. Even with this Cavern of Souls to Odawara back the Murktide, we're just not going to be able to win the race. If any of our lords had stuck for just a single more turn, we would have got there. But
yeah, potentially if Nikachu had 1 more mana with the ability to Odawara the Murktide last turn, then we might have seen a different start. But that is going to do it. Nathan taking the game and match 2-0 over Nikachu, and congratulations to Nathan.
Yeah, congratulations, Nathan. But we are not done with the Magic just yet, Devin. We have a backup feature match for you. Zoe Reederman is playing lands, and she is undefeated. So let's head on over there and see how she's doing in the lands mirror. The opponent is playing much more of like a turbo-y one, if I remember correctly, from before the round started. But it is a lot of lands action going on here.
Lands on lands on lands.
All right, I'm going to catch the players up, Devin. Get ready. So we got 2 Mox Diamonds, a Maze of Ith, Thespian Stage. Another Thespian Stage seems to be copying something for Zoe, an Exploration, Soul Guide Lantern, and Endurance for her, against Ross Kruger's 2 Construct Tokens, an Elvish Reclaimer, which does seem to be missing 1 land, Ancient Tomb Stage, Maze of Ith, and a Cradle and Exploration of his own there.
Yeah, so this is such an interesting mirror match where, both players having access to the Thespian Stage Dark Depths combo, but neither player really ever wanting to deploy the Dark Depths because they're at risk of their opponent just having their own copy of Thespian Stage. So you get into this really weird, staring contest where neither player really wants to do that much. And, even something like Urza Saga, if your opponent has a Stage and you play a Saga, they can all of a sudden have their own Saga. So Stage, protecting Stage with Wasteland and having that set up seems like a very, very important part of this matchup.
Agreed. Does look like Zoe's passing the turn.
Yeah, and interesting to note, it looks like Ross has the Reclaimers in the main deck. These decks are very, very similar. Ross has the Reclaimers in the main, and Zoe has hers in her sideboard. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but, looks like she wants to go towards those in this matchup, which does make sense because, again, having more access to those powerful lands like Wasteland and Thespian Stage does make a lot of sense.
You're going to see a draw for turn here. We're going to see.
So he's got a Wasteland. So I guess the question is, how do we advance the board state, right? So, Ross has a couple of constructs. There are currently only 2/2s, and they're being held off by a 3/4. Both players with a Maze of Ith in play. I think Zoe might even have 2 Maze of Iths. And then again, she has a Stage and a Wasteland still left over. So, it's like, where exactly do we go from here? So I was going to copy a Wasteland. Interesting.
I like this. I think Zoe's maybe setting up double Wasteland so that if Ross tries to Elvish Reclaimer into a Wasteland to stop the combo, she can interact with that. Because she can Reclaimer here for a land and turn this forest or any of the land she wants into something.
Yeah, I guess Zoe can eventually set up... The Stage is kind of awkward, though. So Zoe could say Reclaimer for... I guess you can Wasteland Ross's Stage, then go get the Depths, and then, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Then you have to, untap and... I don't know.
It is weird. We actually have Rodney Bedell behind Zoe Reederman. Rodney is one, I believe, 2 of our events with the Selesnya Lands deck, someone who's very experienced with it. So... looks like we're going to get Urza Saga. That makes sense to maybe just try to make the battlefield a bit better in her favor and try and go for the combo. Looks like She's decided, nah. Yeah, we're back at the saga. Final answer.
All right,
We are
we'll
going
see
to
crop rotation. You would imagine, yeah, it looks like Ross is going to fire off a Wasteland before Zoe can untap and make some constructs, which I think that makes sense because, Ross is aware of the situation where, Zoe also has 2 Mox Diamonds. So her constructs would be a little bit bigger than Ross's.
Yeah, it makes sense. Also, just one less thing Zoe has to work through now. Looks like she's activating pretty quickly here with her Mox Diamonds. Okay, she's going to use the Thespian stage for mana and turn it into something.
Okay. Stage going to the graveyard. What are we doing here for Zoe? So we can Dark Depths now. No, we're just going to go for Saga. Ooh, are we doing this in the upkeep, Mason?
I think we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Zoe had 1 card in her hand. And last time we just didn't play anything. So I think she is going to the upkeep here in order to make some. If so, that's going to be really effective.
Yeah, so for the folks who are not sure, if you upkeep the Reclaimer activation and the Saga comes into play before your main phase, then the Saga comes into play and then it'll get the Chapter 2 on your main phase.
Yeah, so what she actually did, Devin, very similar. She draw stepped it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think she was looking to see if she's just going to draw a Saga, and she's like, well, if I'm not, I'm going to get a Saga. I'm Saga. As we are going to see a Wasteland on the Maze of Ith, I believe, was the target. We are going to see a Thespian stage copying the Maze of Ith.
This is such a complex game. There's a lot going on here.
There's a ton. As Zoe is now going to attack with her Endurance.
Okay, so that's why we fought over the Maze of Ith, so we can start getting in there with Endurance. Now, if you're on Ross's side of things, 3/4 versus 2/2/2s seems like a relatively good block. I wonder if Zoe has something like a copy of Swords to Plowshares in her hand.
Well, if he does this, they both die because the state-based actions afterwards is the problem.
True.
So I think Zoe's just trying to basically say, like, I think she felt a little behind, and she's just like, hey, like when it comes to like lands positioning, and so now she's trying to push before Ross has time to do more stuff. I think this all started back when Ross was holding her card in hand. Now it looks like Zoe's very far ahead, and Ross only on 8 life is, kind of needs to now find something to do. Does have a Horizon Canopy for a redraw.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Zoe just kind of wants to clear the board before she starts making those construct tokens. Because like I said, her construct tokens are going to be bigger than Ross's. So maybe she's worried about Ross maybe drawing his own copy of Urza Saga, and then his constructs can outsize hers and so on and so forth. Now, Ross did have the ability, if I'm not mistaken, to Thespian stage to copy the Urza Saga, maybe in Ross's own upkeep, but is maybe waiting to do it until now. Not sure what we're saving the stage for.
I'm unsure as well, but it looks like Zoe took some time, and Ross and Zoe both took time to think about it. So there's clearly something they're thinking about and playing around. We're also jumping in mid-game, so there might have been some stuff that happened earlier in the game that, like, play pattern-wise, where the players are showing something. Zoe is holding up a Seiju in hand as well. That's going to give her a lot of edge if people try to go for the combo, which feels like the more we talk about it, it's so hard to ever Dark Depths. I wonder if players trim down on that post board. It would make a little bit of sense to me, but I am not an expert. So we're just going to see a floating of the Urza Saga. No contract activation.
Yeah, it does. Like you said, it seems pretty almost nearly impossible to set up the Dark Depth stuff because not only do you have to worry about your opponent's Thespian stages, you have to worry about their Wastelands, their Maze of Iths, and then also on top of all of that, the Swords to Plowshares that are in both players' sideboards. So it seems very, very difficult to kind of ever get into a position where you can actually go for that Mirror Age.
Yeah, and Zoe actually gets to start attacking with her Elvish Reclaimer here because she has the Soul Guide Lantern, which will shrink Ross's Elvish Reclaimer if he takes the block.
Little beatdowns. And
Chapow.
So is going to do that. Graveyard, get out of here. All right, so Ross is going to pay 2, go to 6. Those Ancient Tombs are a pretty sizable liability with Ross already at 6 life. We'll see what Ross wants to get here. I'm not sure. Potentially something like an Urza Saga, but Bajuka Bug. Oh, okay. So we're kind of just bouncing off each other now. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder if Zoe was supposed to maybe let damage happen, and it's possible they just did, and it's just shortcutted, But had damage occurred, we would have actually finished off.
Yeah, both of them would have died.
Yep. All right, but second Reclaimer doesn't super matter. We're just gonna push.
Yeah, and it does seem like, because neither player seems to really be going for that Merit Lage combo, it's all about positioning with the Reclaimers and the Urza Sagas, and Zoe has been able to do a pretty good job of maintaining, kind of like that sort of that positioning, right, where she has multiple Reclaimers, had the Endurance versus Ross's 2/2s, and it seems like Zoe has kind of navigated and maneuvered this game state to a pretty good position for her.
Yeah. Well, she's got...
But we can't attack. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, it looks like Zoe might also just be able to end a turn this stuff into things. Does look like Ross's last card in hand is a crop rotation as well. And Ross has taken like 12 damage from his land since we got here. it has been one of the things giving Zoe, I think, a bit of a lead here is Thespian Stage is going to be activated.
Yeah, just all Ancient Tombs and Horizon Canopies. Ross was probably doing fine when because when we just came into the game, Ross had that Yavimaya in play, but ended up sacrificing the Yavimaya to the first crop rotation, and that has cost him a lot of life.
Agreed. Zoe has gotten a Lush Portico. So much value about to be had. There's another Lands Master, Dom Harvey, in the background. All the Lands players, they find each other and they just watch their games. It's a wild place to be, as we are going to see a draw for turn here after a quick bidding of the scrub land. Well, the Savannah, excuse me, misspoke.
Is that the same thing as Amulet players?
Well, in the case of Dom, yes. Looks like Zoe's figuring out if she wants to attack or not. It looks like the players are also joking around with each other, having a good time, realizing they're in such a bizarre board state. As we are going to see this Thespian Stage copy something. It's a little unclear to me as well. It might be Zoe's Maze of Ith or the Horizon Canopy.
Horizon Canopy. He did stack it up with the other canopy, so maybe just wants access to more green mana.
Well, we got another Thespian Stage, so if Ross really wants green, we can mean it.
Yeah, I guess if Ross wanted painless, like if it was just specifically for green mana, you could have copied the Portico instead. So potentially maybe is looking to sacrifice the Thespian Stage. Not exactly sure. So he's going to fire off a Reclaimer.
Yeah, it might also be that Ross did copy the Portico or the whatever it's called, the Surreal Land, and is just putting it with the other green-white land so we remember. It's hard to know with these sort of things, especially cards like Thespian Stage that are changing up every minute. By the way, I've been paying attention. It looks like Zoe does have one copy of Dark Depths in her deck as she's searching. So she does have the ability to sort of oopsie-poopsie backdoor the combo if she wants it. As she has picked up the Mouse Coast.
It does kind of make sense to keep it in some fashion. Like, you probably don't want that to be a part of every single game, but you want to have the ability, because you have so many tutors, right, with Reclaimers and crop rotations and ways to find those lands, that it's probably, the upside of keeping one in that just, okay, I got you kind of situation does make a lot of sense. And, looking at Ross's mana base, Ross has, Stage, which we presume is copying a green-white land, Horizon Canopy, and 2 more stages. But see, here's the thing. So with Ross at 5, right, say Zoe decides to go for, like, the end of turn. Yeah, I guess if you go for end of turn Merit Lage, Ross can just tap the Bog, the Canopy, go to 4, copy Merit Lage, then you both have Merit Lage, and that's probably not where you want to be. So you probably still have to wait a little bit on that.
It looks like Ross is popping the Canopy, has drawn an Exploration. Think about activating this Ancient Tomb. Might just... All right, it's going to use the green version of the Thespian Stage. We'll find out in a second what land it was originally.
Crop rotation. So, trying to think if there's some sort of setup here where Ross can go, say, crop rotation for... Wasteland, the Thespian Stage, Reclaimer, get Dark Depths, but that still doesn't beat Zoe's Maze of Ith. So, yeah, this is such a weird spot. I
think you're 5-heading it. I think Ross is like, get 20/20. Also make Reclaimer 3/3. Because now Zoe can't crop rotate for a Bajuka Bog to shrink those Reclaimers, which I think was maybe her plan before. Now she does have the Boseiju.
Yep. Yeah, and I wonder if Ross is getting the Dark Depths without the intention of the intention of activating it, right? Because what can happen here is if Zoe goes to copy the Dark Depths, Ross can respond, copy his own Dark Depths legend rule, get rid of the Dark Depths. So it's kind of like whoever acts first type of thing. As Zoe has the endurance to shrink Ross's Reclaimers, that's kind of a beating.
That is huge. Devin, if you and I ever play, never offer me a 3-card random pile or cut. I refuse. Anyone watching, I'm going to assume you watch this great coverage today over here on NRG. Never do it. Our lives are fleeting. We do not have time.
What if it's 4 cards? What's your limit?
Anything under the cards in my hand, 5 or 6 even. I don't want it. As we do see a Dark Depths trying to get sacrificed here to the Reclaimer. I believe it looks like we're maybe figuring out how we want to do it. There is a Yavimaya Cradle in place, so those Ancient Tombs don't have to deal us damage.
Okay, so we're keeping the Dark Depths available. So this is kind of interesting, Mason. Zoe only has a Yavimaya and a Mazavith untapped. There's no Wastelands, no stages. If Ross just goes, get a Wasteland off this, Ancient Tomb, copy my Dark Depths, untap Wasteland or Mazavith, Zoe's at 20. That 20 minus 20 is 0.
Yeah, I think that might be what Ross is thinking. We know Zoe does have the Boseiju in hand, but
he's probably in a position where he's so far behind that maybe he can't play around it, but looks like we're going to go for Yavimaya instead.
All right. Everyone's in the cradle.
We are going to copy, looks like something. Nope. Okay, we're activating Reclaimer again.
Is this all in the draw step? I am confused as to what
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think Ross has that 1 card in hand still. So so we're just making.
Oh, is this still in combat? It might still be in combat because remember Ross blocked and Zoe went for the endurance, and then Ross said, "Okay, resolve. Now I'm going to put 3 lands in my graveyard to keep my Reclaimers big."
Okay, yeah, that might be what's happening because I think he did start with maybe a crop rotation or something. And so because I thought he'd start with a Reclaimer because I remember there being tutoring, but you're right. This might be what happened here is we just got this all so we can make our Reclaimers not die, which is honestly so sick. Really cool and heads up stuff. This is the stuff I'd love to see from Legacy. It does look like we have 2 lands in hand for. Oh, wait, then there's a life in the loam. It's a little hard to see, but
this is maybe the single most complicated game that I've ever seen in my life. But I'm here for it.
It's great. I love it. Lambs was the deck I always wanted to play in Legacy, but it was just always out of my price range, and I'll just see other people do it. As we do see a life in the loam targeting these 3.
Yeah, and Ross does have the exploration, so that loam is going to be able to go pretty crazy here. Ross is going to be able to play maybe a stage and a Pajuka Bog. And I believe Zoe has already gone through her bog. I'm not sure though.
I'm not sure either. I'm curious to see how Ross wants to play as we are going to see the Pajuka Bog. A nasty boggy, as the kids would say.
Well, it's nasty because it's whiteboarded, right?
Yeah, true. I'm of the belief that if you're going to play a hate card, you should play the whiteboarder version. Just let them know.
Well, Mason, there is no whiteboarder version of Pachuca Bog.
That's self-made?
Yeah.
Ross, the man who gets it done.
See, at least, I was hoping that if you're going to whiteboarder a card, at least whiteboarder the best version. So like the retro frame Pachuca Bog, whiteboarder that one.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe Ross is busy learning these complicated lines. Doesn't have time to do it.
True.
After this one though, in the future match, I'm sure Ross will go back and fix that. So it does look like Zoe is trying to figure out exactly how to navigate, and I do not blame either of these players taking a little bit of time to figure it out because it is a complicated spot. So it does look like Zoe is going to crash in with it. Well, just
turning something sideways. Yeah, like I said, I wonder if Zoe still has the Pachuca Bog. We came into the game a little late, so we're not sure if it got exiled to Ross's Pachuca Bog or something like that. But if she does have access to Bog in her deck, you would imagine she wants to get that to get rid of that loam. Because if Ross starts dredging that loam with the exploration, we're gonna get. I feel like we would maybe get to a position where Ross can just overwhelm. And we had kind of talked about that setup where you go to copy Dark Depths and your opponent Wastelands or stages, and if Ross just has enough mana in play, then maybe he can just kind of overwhelm that.
Yep. Desmond stage. Well, there's tapping of something. I assume
He pointed to Mazabeth.
that would make sense.
Especially if Zoe has demonstrated that she wants to start attacking at some point. Making a Mazabeth kind of makes sense.
And so well played from both players. We saw Ross definitely get in a bit of a hair situation as clawed his way out of it, and Zoe doing the best she can to sort of take her advantage and sort of try to run away with the game, and has been keeping up despite Ross putting that here a bit. And it looks like Zoe's gonna Reclaimer. Oh, is he trying to copy the maze? Maybe she's sacking the maze.
Okay. Zoe's like, you know what? How about neither of us have Mazabeth? How about that? Or maybe she just goes and fetches another one.
She does have the bog. Okay. Damn. Look at that old border, too. Bam.
Yep.
Respect for the game.
So the bog is going to take care of that life from the loam. That's going to stunt a lot of Ross's, development with the exploration and whatnot. So, both players sort of just at even footing. They both have 2 reclaimers. So we just have the endurance. A little bit, I guess Ross is slightly ahead on mana. This is such that's a Crucible of Worlds. That would have been a little good if we had a land in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Because we have a Windswept Teeth that we can go to 1-4 and then replay that.
Sure. Feels like we can just play the Crucible and then later we're going to end up doing some weird Reclaimer stuff and eventually make a land drop. But Ross might also just need the mana right now for the Reclaimer weird stuff.
Yeah, you could go like Super 5-head, Thespian Stage, copy your own Yavimaya, Legend Rule, replay Thespian Stage. I don't really know where that gets you, but...
I don't know, but you got a lot of camera time if you do that one, as we just see a Withered Foothills for turn. Looks like Zoe's going to... Oh, she's not looking under the camera. Understandable. She is figuring out what is in her exile, though. Figuring out how she wants to play this game. Has had this Boseiju for about 10 turns with a lot of discipline and holding it. Really like that. Always leaving the mana up for it. Looks like she is going to start. Ooh, even the Haywire might slamming. I like this.
So Ross is at 2, and he's only got 2 blockers. So that math checks out, right? So, you're going to go. Ross is going to activate, target this thing. Zoe maybe can make her own copy of Dark Depths in response.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Zoe can make Dark Depths and then Boseiju the Dark Depths. Looks like she's doing it the other way, just in case Ross has some way to keep it around. I like that. Makes a ton of sense.
This is probably the safest way to do it, because if you let's say you use your own Thespian Stage and then Boseiju, you're maybe a little bit lower on mana, so maybe that matters. And this Boseiju is going to resolve, so Ross is going to go search up a land here. Now, again, Zoe has 4 attackers. Ross has 2 blockers at 2 life. I don't know if Ross has any sort of crop rotation or anything in hand. And as the battlefield sits, I believe. Well, okay, let's think about this. Oh, we have another stage. Okay, right, we have a second stage.
Zoe has a crop rotate, so maybe this was her plan, was to get Ross to tap down, then crop rotate for a Wasteland.
Or she can just crop rotate for Karakas.
Oh, yep, that would also get the job done.
Looks like maybe we are letting the Merit Lage resolve. That's smart because that gives Ross access to a lot more lands. So I'll have to see if Zoe does go for that Karakas here.
Looks like she's triple checking.
Probably I just wanted to make sure that the Karakas didn't get milled over or something. Oh, we're going to blocks. Interesting.
Maybe Zoe has one of those new Outlaw Thunder Junction ping lands in her deck.
No, I'm looking at the deck list and I do not see one.
But... Maybe they should consider one of those ping lands from OTJ. Which you can pick up at NRG.com.
Okay, so Zoe's going to fetch, get a Savannah. We're looking through the deck. I wonder if maybe there was... Maybe Zoe thought she had... I'm not sure what we're doing here. Okay, now we're going to cast the crop rotation, I think.
I have too much respect for Zoe to not know that she thought this was going to happen. So there's something up. It might be that she's in a position where she sideboarded out some cards and she has to Hail Mary. Basically be like, hey, I'm going to kill your stuff and then... Okay.
There's the Karakas.
There it is. Interesting.
So we're going to Caracas the Merit Lage. After blocks, Ross is going to fall to 1, I presume.
Yeah.
All right, Merit Lage gone. Reclaimers bounce off of each other because there are 3 lands in both players' graveyards.
Oh, yeah, maybe Zoe did it like this because there's some way that she could get got by like the Reclaimers searching. So she just wanted to push 1 damage for sure, and then just basically be like, the same is true last turn is true of this turn.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure there was no way she could get punked out by like perhaps a crop rotation for a second Dark Depths or something along those lines.
Yeah, so she just, or like the Sajiri step or whatever too. So she's like, I'll guarantee the 1, get the Caracas, you know. Looks like we're going to see Horizon Canopy popped. Got an Elvish Reclaimer.
All right, so now we have 3 blockers versus 4 attackers. Ross still 1 blocker short.
Yeah.
This would be a wild way for this game to win. Just, you know, no Merit Lages, just attacking with some random creatures.
Oh my goodness. And I think we still have some time left in the round. Production will let us know. These players do, guys, there's 6 minutes left in the round. They are on a slightly different timer because they need to move over and, you know, get ready for our future matches. So we're super appreciative of that. But what a wild game. I cannot wait to see what's going to happen in game number 3. Once again, there's about 6 minutes left in the round. And let's be honest, there's probably about 5 by the time the players present and are ready to play. So, Devin, what do you think the plan of attack is going into game number 3 here?
I don't really know. It's like we talked about during the games. It seems very, very difficult for either player to really kind of have that fast Dark Depth start because there's just so many ways to break it up. The Wastelands, the Maze of Abyss, opposing Thespian stages, crop rotations, Elvish Reclaimers. There's just a million different ways of things. So it seems like the way to kind of the best way to win the matchup is just kind of board presence, where you have like Exploration Loam to get ahead on mana, Urza Saga to make construct tokens. So it seems like that might be the plan that both players are looking for. And, you know, as you talked about, it looked like Zoe had been had trimmed down a lot of the Dark Depths to you know, to make sure that plan worked.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's head on back real quick. Maybe we can pull up their decks or something. It looks like the players are ready. I was going to say that. I imagine
they're going fast.
Quickly. Yeah, we got to play quickly here. And I wonder if this led to anyone bringing back in maybe more Dark Depths or whatever. You know, like we mentioned, we have a ton of tutoring, right? And there's a bunch of ways to stop it. But I wonder if the players maybe, you know, brought in like a second one to maybe try to do it a little quicker.
Yeah, I worry about that though, because if you have Dark Depths in your opener and your opponent, like, you know what I mean? If you have Dark Depths and they have a stage or something, you could kind of run into this awkward situation. But I guess if you can play Dark Depths with a crop rotation to prevent them from going for their own Thespian stage, then maybe that could be fine. It looks like, I believe Ross is keeping, and with that die, it looks like Zoe potentially going down to 6 cards.
Yep. Saw a Maze of Ith, and that's about all I saw.
I see some whiteboarder cards in Ross's hand.
Yeah, again, Exploration and Ancient Tomb.
Ross's hand looks really good. Exploration plus Loam. Like, you can't ask for a lot more than that in the opening hand.
Yeah. Zoe going to
5.
Yeah, maybe just looking for the best way to win on a small amount of time. I mean, this might be a situation where Zoe had hands that are normally, you know, if you have 30, 40 minutes left in the round, they're not great, but you maybe keep them because they play a long, protracted game. And you think your build's a little favored. Can't really do that when you're on 5 minutes on the clock. Sometimes you got to make mulligan decisions that are a little out of the norm for your deck.
Yeah, I wonder if, you know, the way that Zoe might be aggressively mulliganing towards something like an Urza Saga, which I did see as she kind of thumbed through those cards. So maybe she has finally found what she's looking for.
Does look like she's putting to the bottom, and we're gonna get started with a Thespian stage into a Mox Diamond. Gonna discard the Bognazi, get the Exploration into play.
Oh,
with the Ancient Tomb.
Oh, and a turn 1 Loam. Okay, interesting. We're not gonna cast the Loam.
So well, I don't think we have the green.
Oh, right, because we played Ancient Tomb. Correct. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, you're all good.
I thought we had a second green source. Okay, so Ross is going to be able to cast the Loam next turn.
Oh.
And Ross gets the copy Zoe Saga. What a turn here for Ross.
Yeah, that is pretty good. That Saga is going to tick up to 2.
No,
no, it starts at 0. That's right. Yeah. It's so weird, but yes, it does start at 0. And we're going to see Force of Negation in the upkeep, getting rid of Life from the Loam, blowing up Zoe's 2 lands. You see a smile from her as she does have more lands and spells to play, but we're going to see an Urza Saga again.
Another saga. Okay, and that kind of makes sense as to why Ross didn't cast Alone that turn, because Ross just has the Wasteland too. My goodness, Ross, just stop. She's already dead.
Zoe says third time's the charm.
Yeah.
All right, we have the Soul Guide Lantern. We can get rid of that Wasteland. Ross is going to get to tutor here in a second. They're going to have, I think, 5/5 constructs, which those kill pretty quickly.
Yep. It's going to make another token. I want us to take a look at Ross's deck list. Do we have the boots? Ross does not have the boots. Zoe also does not. I thought somebody had the boots.
We were looking at Dominic Harvey's list earlier, who did have the Spur boots from OTJ.
Yeah, neither of these players have the boots. And you can imagine if Ross did have the boots here, that would put Zoe in a 2-turn clock. Ross would just go get the boots, equip the new construct, and then, be able to attack with both. So no boots here for Ross, but is going to waste. All right, third saga. You said third time's the charm, but apparently not. Ross has decided otherwise, and Zoe's going to extend the hand.
Yeah, so the writing is on the wall there. Congratulations to Ross Kruger going on to 5-1 in a great position here with a few rounds left in our Swiss. So congratulations. We are going to take a quick break because the round is over for the normal players. They are in the time portion. So we're going to set up for our next feature match, but we'll be right back. So make sure, go grab some water, and we'll see you here for the rest of the day.